Hi, I am Cookie from Stuttering to Confidence. I created this platform so people who stutter can have a place to understand stuttering and to share their stories. Now, today we have a phenomenal guy who started out stuttering, but has overcome the fear, and now he is managing his stutter. So we're going to dive in and understand how he got to this point. So I'm going to introduce Larry, and I want him to, I'm going to have him introduce himself. I'm going to have him come on, tell us where he's from, what he does, and when did he start stuttering. So with all further ado, Larry, can you tell us where you are from?
Hi, Cookie. How are you? It's nice to see you. Larry Stein, and I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I live in a northern suburb of Chicago. And how long I've been studying? Like most of you, I began at about age 4 or 5. And I'm not sure when it got severe, but I can tell you that from the moment I entered school, I had a pretty severe stutter, and it's been a long road, and I'll let Cookie ask the questions, and go ahead, Cookie.
One good question I would like to know, and I'm sure that the group would like to know also, is from a person who stutters. I want to know how severe was your stutter in the beginning? When did it start, and when did it become a issue that you knew you were going to have for a while? Let us in on that.
Well, I knew at the age of 4 or 5 that it was a real problem, and so that was no secret to me, and all you had to do was ask me my name, and you would know how severe my stutter was. I was able to overcome saying my name by the age of 57. So and now I'm 65. I worked through my stuttering over the years. It was pretty severe up through my 20s. And then when I got into the work world, more involved in that, I even compromised my career. I wanted to be an investment advisor. That's what I do now. I have my own investment firm. And and when I went off on my own at the age of 54, that's when I really got serious about improving my speech. I had tried many times before. I'd gone to Northwestern University. I'd gone to the University of Chicago. I had gone to all these places. Really, nothing came out of that. Probably my fault more than theirs, but the age of 54, that's when I really made a big push toward improving. But my speech had improved in my 30s and 40s just from being in the work world and talking more. And so that's when things began to improve. But I had a very severe stutter. I mean, we couldn't have a conversation. Or if we had a conversation, within a few minutes, I would be exhausted. My jaw would be, hurting. Just to give you an idea how severe, about 10 years ago, I went to a new dentist, and he looked at my teeth and go, "Oh my God, you must gnash your teeth so badly in your sleep." And I didn't tell him, well, I used to be a really severe stutterer, and it's from doing that. So he gave me a mouth guard and all that, and I continue using it even though I don't really need it. And that was how severe my stuttering was.
Now, was there ever a time where you felt like you were helpless or hopeless, and you wanted to run and hide because of the fear of what people might think of you?
I don't know if it was the fear of what people might think of me, but I went through a lot of very difficult times, and I went through some depressions and some very severe depressions, very severe. And so I had always wanted to be an investment advisor, but I didn't think I could talk well enough. And when I tried to get in the field in my 20s, I literally couldn't say a word. I mean, just nothing would come out. And so I became a CPA, a master's in tax. I worked at top CPA firms because I didn't think I'd have to talk. Of course, that's not true. You have to talk some. And then I became a financial writer because I didn't think I'd have to talk. And I was in that, and then I was up for a new job, and I was all ready to take it. And then the guy said, "Well, you're going to be consulting with CEOs and CFOs of publicly traded companies." I said, "Well, I can't do that." He said, "Why?" I said, "Because I stutter." He said, I know that, and it's going to be a problem in the beginning, but they'll get to know you and they'll like your work and it'll be okay," which was true. So I had turned him down, and he persisted, and then I joined, and that really helped my speech. So I got to some point there in my 30s and 40s where I could talk better just because I was always talking, but not good enough to open up my own firm like what I eventually did in my 50s. And I'll let you ask your questions to get to that. Go ahead.
So my good question is, when did the light come on in your head where you said, "I'm going to come up with a strategy. I have to beat this because I'm not going to fear doing things that I really want to do"? So when did you first say to yourself, "I've got to put something into play. I've got to come up with a plan"? And
Well,
when you thought, what was it? Yeah.
I'm sorry. Well, I had done that a million times through my life. But thinking of a plan is a lot different from really being able to execute on something. So I went off on my own in the investment field at the age of 54. And I had some clients because I'd worked in the field by then for 7 years. And at that point, so that first year went great. I loved it. I had the time of my life. I created my firm just the way I wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
And after a year, I said, "Wow, this has been the best year of my life, but I don't have enough clients. I don't have nearly enough clients," because while I was getting out there and networking, setting up meetings with people via email, not calling people because I couldn't make phone calls like that yet. I couldn't introduce myself yet. I couldn't have a substantive conversation yet. And so I realized I had to do something or I would be out of business and my family would be in trouble. I mean, I was literally going to be in trouble. And one thing I realized though, so I was asked to be, I had a cousin on a small nonprofit board, and they needed people who were younger on the board. Everyone was really old. And so in my early 50s, I said, okay. So I went on the board, and a few years later, they asked me to be the volunteer president. Very little board, don't be impressed. I said no to them, just like I had before to everyone else, because I knew I would have to lead board meetings. And I had led meetings with 2 or 3 people, but not with 20 or 30 people. And I would have to do some little speeches, 5 to 10 minutes here and there. And the last time I did that was, in my 20s, and that was an absolute disaster. And they kept on asking me, and I finally gave in. And so I did that. And when I would give these little speeches or lead meetings, one thing from my speech therapy when I was young came through, and that was that I should try phrasing. So I was phrasing, just like you hear me talking now,
Right.
speaking in phrases. And that helped me at least get through these speeches and at least get through these meetings. I was still avoiding speaking. I was still, substituting words, changing words. I was still stuttering pretty heavily now and then, but not as badly. And I realized one day, so if you're asking when the light came on, there were many lights. I mean, there's 1,000 little things that I did, but the first one was when I realized one night after a meeting that I could public speak better than I could regular speak. And so at that point, that just meant that I could phrase. And because I couldn't regular speak that well at all, but I could public speak okay. I was holding on for dear life, trying not to stutter still.
Yeah.
But I could do it better than I could. So I decided at that point I was going to throw away how I spoke, which was never going to get me anywhere. Just literally throw it away. And I was going to public speak all the time. All the time.
Oh.
And that was the beginning. But that's one of 1,000 steps.
Now, tell us what would be the difference in the way it feels to public speak versus just regular one-on-one speaking.
So if I were to speak regularly in a long sentence and just go on and on and on like that,
yeah.
I don't know that I would have trouble now, but I would eventually, stutter and all that. But what this evolved into was, and there are many stories with this, but I'll just shortcut it. So I realized once I was public speaking, and I was making a little progress. I mean, if I was trying to go from here to there, I was maybe there, just a little progress, that I began watching public speakers. I began watching broadcasters. And I began mimicking Matt Lauer of the Today Show. Now I know now he's had some troubles, but before he was like the guy on morning TV, and I would mimic him. And as he would talk, I would picture his words coming out of my mouth. When I would talk, I would picture his mouth doing it. And I realized that he did a couple things more than what I was doing. And, obviously he's doing a ton more, but just to simplify, he would take a breath before he talks, and he would emphasize a word toward the end of a phrase. I was going, oh, that's pretty cool. I've never seen anyone do that. He did that because, that would get you to listen. It'd be more compelling. And then I began watching other broadcasters, and they're all doing that. And, because they're all compelling and all that. But for me, I realized, this is months later, that uses up my air. And so it forces me, it's like a cue to breathe again. And so I began saying to myself, all right, I'm going to live phrase to phrase, breath to breath, phrase to phrase, breath to breath. And every phrase is going to be the same. I will always take a breath to begin it. I will speak on the exhale. I will emphasize the word late in the phrase, so I use up my breath and take a clean breath and go. That's just the physical part. That's the easy stuff. That's the easy stuff. And then later I realized to really do the speech mechanics, the easy stuff well, I should be more expressive. So you see people being very mechanical in their speech. I'm saying just do the entire opposite. Be more expressive, and that way you use up your air. But that's just the speech mechanics. So if I was trying to get from here to there, maybe with speech mechanics I got maybe halfway, maybe a little less. but it's progress for a guy who had tried a million times and failed a million times. And I was encouraged by that. But that's just one little piece of it.
Now, when you got a hold of that jewel of a thought, was it is it possible that that thinking made you not really focus on I'm a stutterer, I'm not going to be able to do this presentation? Did it happen to where that you says I'm going to speak just like a broadcaster? So in your mind, you get up and you just do it, and you don't think about stuttering. You think about being that good public speaker that's just like that broadcaster. So you are not, yeah. So what I'm saying is you're not bringing in all the negative thoughts that we as stutterers can do. So does it help in that area?
Well, so the mechanics are one thing.
Yeah.
And then there's the psychological stuff that I had to work through.
Right.
And then there were the situations things I had to work through. So it's, three big parts. But to answer your question, stuttering for 50 years as I had,
Wow.
for most of that time, I had a real, what I call the victim mindset. The, oh no, I can't do anything. And my life is in, a total mess, total failure, which is how I was for many of those 50 years. And I had to break out of that. And I had to work through all those thoughts and take different actions. So whereas for most of that 50 years, I was avoiding speaking, I was avoiding stuttering, I would hide behind my wife and kids, I would hide behind whatever I could. But when I began to make some progress and I got the mechanics down and my speech was improving a little bit, again, not even halfway to my goal. And then I began to address the psychological stuff. And the first thing I had to address was just what you're saying, Cookie, which is, do I avoid or engage? Do I keep avoiding, or do I really engage? And, frankly, I don't know if I had to improve my speech that much to make that decision to engage. As it turns out, for me, that's what happened. But one of the most important things I did was I decided to get out there and talk. And that was really important. Now, I think it really helped that I now had a strategy, a mechanical strategy for speaking. And so I was, rather than reinforce bad habits, which I would have if I hadn't improved my mechanics, now I was reinforcing good things. And then I literally went situation to situation, easiest situation first, on up and up and up. And I began to work through the psychological stuff, and I began to work through, just situations. And at the top of my hierarchy, I call it.
Right.
At the top of my hierarchy, the hardest thing for me that I knew about, at least, was to say my name. And that was literally a 3-month project after doing this improvement thing for 1.5 years. So it pretty much took me close to 2 years. And it took me over 3 months just to say my name, just focusing on that. Everything took me a long time, but the key on the mechanics, by the way, was to drill it in so deeply so that I didn't have to think about it. So, because I'm doing it all the time. People say, oh, what kind of technique can you give me? What kind of tip? What kind of trick? There's no trick, there's no technique, there's nothing. It's just how good speakers speak. And I threw away how I spoke, and this is how I was going to speak all the time.
Okay. So that's awesome.
Okay. So
if there was someone watching us right now and they are feeling hopeless, but yeah, they are looking because they want to find a ray of hope. What would you tell them? What would be the key thing that you can do to come out and be more expressive?
Well, the first place I think to begin is with improving your speech mechanics. And that is, and the first thing there, if you're talking of one thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
I would say is to be able to breathe, take a breath, and speak on the exhale. And then one of the other things is, people who stutter, and I was, I'm not overcome stuttering. There is once in a while I will find myself like if I'm in a foreign country and everyone's talking fast, it's a language I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
I can easily fall back into my, into a stutter here or there, really. When I'm in this country, it's pretty rare for me, but it can happen still. It can happen. There are little remnants of stuttering still with me, but that's okay because I say whatever I want to whomever I want, whenever I want. And that's the important thing. I mean, even if you stutter, if you can say what you want, that's good enough, at least for me. But if there were one or two things that I would do, I would breathe and speak on the exhale, and I would play with my speech. What do I mean by play? So to me, that is as people who stutter, we're so rigid. We're trying so hard not to stutter. We're trying so hard.
Yes.
So hard. Let it go. Play with your speech. So in other words, if you listen to me, and I'm not even doing it consciously, but I've just gotten into the habit because I now do some public speaking professionally.
Right.
I mean, I'm actually going to be, talking on this topic for money soon. I'm already booked.
Right.
But if you listen, you'll hear that if there's anything I am not, is rigid. Now, I used to be incredibly rigid. Holding on, trying not to stutter, kind of monotone.
Most of us are.
And now you'll hear that every phrase, even though every phrase has a breath and an emphasis and an end of a phrase, they're all a little different. My voice might be a little different. My cadence, the pauses in between each phrase.
Right.
The length of the phrase, sometimes short, sometimes long.
Mm-hmm.
The voice is always a little different, and that just, it's breaking the rigidity. So I talk about breaking things a lot.
So now my final question is, how did you get into your stuttering group? How did you start? Tell me about now, how you got to where now you want to help others be able to break free and speak and play with their voices. I want to know about your group, how you started it, and what can you do for others who are stuttering still?
So I do a whole bunch of things. I'm putting the finishing touches on a book. And,
oh, what's the title?
I can't release that yet.
Okay. Okay.
But I have used the words in our talk.
Right. Right.
I'm just not telling you which ones.
Yeah.
I have a Facebook site, which you helped me on. You helped me on my Facebook site. And I have to really do more with that. And I have a blog. That's Stein on Stuttering. Both my Facebook site
There we go.
and the blog site is called Stein on Stuttering.
Right.
And I mentor people around the world. I think I mentor people in every continent except Antarctica. This week I'm, like just tomorrow I'm going to talk to someone in Europe, United States, China. I mean, they're all over the world. India.
Right.
They're all over the world. And I teach them I'm not a therapist.
Yes.
I'm not a doctor. I'm not anything.
Right.
This is just my experience. I just teach them from my experience. I never charge anyone. This is all just, all I ask is that people are really motivated. Because if you're not really motivated,
right.
it isn't going to be worthwhile. You have to really want this.
Right.
And this was the most important thing to me. And I cannot express to you how big a change in my life this has made. Not necessarily that I'm so fluent. That wasn't the biggest change. The biggest change was just feeling free to speak and to be able to express myself and not hold back from stuff. And you can do that and still stutter.
Sure, yeah.
But I would have never imagined that I could speak as well as I am speaking to you right now. I would not in a million years. And I've just been very fortunate. And it's interesting because some speech therapists said, well, you're a special case and that won't work for anyone else. And you know what? I'm finding that the challenges I had are the same challenges as these people I'm mentoring in China, India, United States, Europe, Canada. The similarities are striking. And some of the people I'm working with are now giving presentations a lot, and they are doing great. And it's the most exciting thing I've ever done. Even as much as I love my investment business, this is just as much a passion. And it's been the most phenomenal experience of my life to, work with people and help them, and they help me too. I learn a lot from them. So I'm very thankful.
Well, I want to thank you and thank you for your time. I also want you to just tell us where we can get a hold of you if we want to get some wisdom a little bit further from you.
Anytime, absolutely. So my blog site and my Facebook site are Stein on Stuttering.
Ooh.
Stein on Stuttering. And
well,
and I'll always get back to you, no matter where you are in the world. I will get back to you.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you. Thank you for spending time. Thank you for coming on, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Cookie. Just a pleasure.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.